This is Richard Oberhammer in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I have a theory about humor that I would like to share with you. Humor has a dark side. At the heart of every joke there is some loss or some weakness. So humor works because of a problem. Now, I expect you might object, saying, "But I feel happy when I laugh." You can feel that happiness, I argue, only because you accept the weakness at the heart of the joke. We will look at an example, then get some theory, then work through a longer example and get more theory. We will consider why people laugh together in groups. Finally, I will wrap up and tell you about my sources. Let us start with an example. You may have seen the cartoon image of a person slipping on a banana peel. This image makes some of us laugh. There is a weakness at the heart of this joke. Under different circumstances, I might have slipped on a banana peel and fallen like that. I laugh because I know I might have made this mistake. So we have the weakness and we have my laughter. But I am not saying that I am consciously aware of that weakness as I laugh. I am not thinking consciously that I might have slipped and fallen like that. On the contrary, most of this process of humor goes on in the subconscious levels of my mind. In addition to a weakness, humor has another part, that is acceptance of the weakness. In this joke, the cartoon character that falls might be injured slightly, but not killed. If I were to fall that way, I assume it would not be fatal. So, while I need to be aware of this hazard, I know that I can carry on. I can go on about my life while knowing that I might make such a mistake. Now, as you know, sometimes people are offended by a joke. That is because not everyone can accept the weakness at the heart of the joke. Someone who had slipped on a banana peel and broken their back would not think this joke was funny and might be offended. To review, this theory of humor has to do first with a weakness or the possibility of making a mistake, and second with acceptance of that weakness, with realization that life can and will go on even with that weakness. Now, we can use that acceptance of a weakness, which is part of humor, to see why some people will not laugh at a joke, because they cannot accept the weakness. They can't tolerate the weakness as part of their ongoing lives. Going further, I think that every joke risks offending someone. Give me any joke, and I can conjure up a character who would be offended. That is, I can think up a history or a set of circumstances which would make that person sensitive to the weakness in the joke. Now we will work through another example. This is a joke that I have seen attributed to Groucho Marx. He may look like an idiot and talk like an idiot, but don't let that fool you. He really is an idiot. The weakness with regard to this joke is that I may make the mistake of being too open-minded about someone who looks and talks like an idiot. Probably we all do that. We try to be generous and open to the possibility that a person really is a full and good person, even though the first impression we get may lead us to think otherwise. But you know, that generosity may be a mistake. So that is my weakness that makes me laugh at that joke. Now, for this joke to work, I also have to accept that weakness. And my acceptance depends upon it not being too dangerous to me. What if I do make that mistake of being too considerate of an idiot? Probably it will not ruin my life. Subconsciously, I feel that I will carry on. It is not a fatal kind of mistake. So I do not find this joke to be offensive to me, but it is a good exercise to ask who would be offended. I invite you to try this. For this joke, I had to think hard to imagine a character who would be offended. I had to conjure up a set of circumstances which would shape a person so that person would be hurt by this joke. Here is what I came up with. We have a character named Sarah who was raised by her parents not to trust her first impressions of other people. On top of that, after Sarah grew up, she noticed cases in which her first impressions of idiocy in other people turned out to be absolutely wrong. If her first impressions were negative, she came to believe, she just had not seen the positive side yet. The person must be strong and gifted. Sarah got married, and with her husband, they started a business. They operated airplanes, flying small groups of explorers into remote regions. In this business, occasionally Sarah had to hire a pilot. And one day she felt sure that she had made the right choice when she hired an applicant who, on first impression, looked and talked like an idiot. The following week, Sarah and her family were planning to start their own vacation. Her husband and 3 children were flying to meet Sarah out in the boonies, but the flight crashed because of an idiotic mistake made by the newly hired pilot. Her entire family was killed. So that is my construction of a character who would be offended by this joke. If you tell this joke to Sarah, it will rip her painful memory open. She will not laugh. So far, I have been telling you about subconscious feelings involved in humor. Now you might ask an obvious question. Why would humor exist? Why would evolution produce a psychological process like humor? Here is my answer. As you have probably experienced, there are many circumstances in life in which we can succeed if we keep trying, if we do not give up too easily. We are always trying, to do things. Sometimes we succeed, but other times we fail. And sometimes when we fail, we don't know exactly why we failed. If we try the same thing again, sometimes it works. So the environment rewards us sometimes for persistence. To have persistence, we have to have a way to process failure while remaining committed to try again. Humor gives us such a process. So humor may have evolved for reasons such as these. Now I admit that, in this that I am saying, there is a great deal of uncertainty. And that shows up in the terms I am using, which are vague and fuzzy. Nonetheless, let me repeat. Humor can process failures which are not fatal or completely crushing. Generally, the failures which can be processed by humor have a low cost when compared with the benefit which might be gained if we can succeed in completing a larger plan. So humor might work in circumstances in which we can expect a payoff from persistence. Now this humor which I have described so far could be about one person laughing alone. But humor also serves a group of people who laugh together. We, as you know, are social animals. We try, often subconsciously, to work together. Because if we can work together, we can accomplish large tasks which could not be done by one of us alone. For one person acting alone, you recall, persistence may be rewarded by the environment. But the environment may also reward persistence in a group of people who work in their individual capacities toward a shared goal. Because of that, we should not be surprised if we have evolved a psychological process through which a group of people can show each other that they share a goal. When a group of people laugh together, they show their intention to carry on together, in spite of a setback, in spite of the weakness at the heart of a joke. That wraps up this introduction to my theory of humor. It can be summarized, as you see below, in one line of text. When we sense that we have a weakness but feel that we can carry on, this happens subconsciously in our minds. Bad, but not too bad. Okay, we can go on. Yay! In this introduction, I have given you only 2 examples, so I have some doubt that you will be convinced. But you might be convinced if we could work more examples. Try this. Analyze jokes which you encounter and see if you can identify the weakness subconsciously inherent in the joke. And if you come across a joke which you believe contains no weakness, I invite you to challenge me in the comments below. Present the joke. Then, for at least the first 5 challenges which I get, I will see if I can discover the weakness and see if I can convince you. Now you may ask, where do I get this stuff? What is my source for this theory? First, I should say, I've been thinking about it for 50 years. But some credit also goes to Johnny Carson. He talked once, if I recall correctly, about what humor is and how it works. Later, about 25 years ago, since I had formed this theory, and since sometimes I act like a scholar, I went and looked through the catalog in a university library. I did not find anything there at that time that made me think that psychologists were getting at the same thing. More recently, around 5 years ago, I looked again in academic literature, and I quickly found that there are a number of people who seem to be saying something like what I am saying here. So I think professional psychologists are getting closer to saying something like this. And of course they publish their stuff in academic literature, so you could go find that if you want. Now, during the last few months, I've read a few helpful pieces in academic literature by Gil Greengross. Links below. One of those links is to a review of a book, Inside Jokes, by Matthew Hurley. I will look at that book soon, since it promises to be good. Finally, this theory about humor folds in with another theory that I am putting together, a broad theory about life. If you want to read about that, you can find it in my blog, Perceived Order. Link below. Thank you.